Tag Home here, and I am joined by Joe Ferrara, who you may know as the voice of RIZIN on the English side, alongside with his broadcast partner Frank Trigg. But if you're a Canadian MMA fan, you'll remember Joe from UFC Connected on Sportsnet. Joe, a real thrill to be talking to you, a Canadian OG in the MMA scene.
Wow, you know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate that because when you're called an OG, you've been around for a while. But again, it's starting to date me now. I think I'm getting older. That's a fact. I mean, time doesn't stand still for anyone. I do feel like I'm getting older. But yeah, I mean, the irony of all this is when the show started, MMA Connected, that was first. Then it became UFC Connected because the UFC saw the first couple of months and they're like, put our letters on there. And we're like, yeah, for sure. Right. You want to put the UFC 3 letters on there. So we did that. And then Sportsnet rebranded, took all the shows, changed Connected to Central. So UFC Central was kind of the way to go. And, it was a fantastic 7-year run. So I'm not complaining, but I'm told all the time that was the golden age of MMA in Canada for sure. So I'm so happy to be part of that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you were one of the voices and bringing the sport to a lot of people. I mean, Sportsnet at the time was unique as well because they were still kind of maybe as a network trying to find their footing. But I remember they had all like the England cards would air early there, so you didn't have to wait the delay to watch on Spike. And for Canadians getting into the sport, especially during the boom period, post Ultimate Fighter, and like 2008 to 2010. Like, you're a big part of that, and I think you should commend yourself for your great work that you did in there.
Well, I appreciate that, and it goes back to way, way, way before all of that. I mean, I can tell a mixed martial arts fan by the time they got into the sport. Were they pre-Ultimate Fighter? Were they post Brock Lesnar? Were they pre Conor McGregor? Were they post Conor McGregor? It all depends on where they started. And I go back. Obviously, I watched the very first UFC live in November of '93. So I saw that live, and that's when I got that bug. That's when I got addicted to it, and that's when I realized, okay, I got to stay involved here some way somehow, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to fight anymore. My body wasn't able to handle the training. So when I got into it, then I recall back in the day, all my friends, including my wife now, but my fiance / girlfriend at the time, they'd all go out. Jason, they'd all go out, party at the clubs, at the pubs, at the bars, whatever. And I remember back then sitting in a coffee shop, waiting for all of them to return from the club or bar while I had a table full of magazines, all martial arts magazines, and reading and writing and making connections on where can I get this VHS tape of what's happening in Japan, whether it was Shudo, whether there was something happening with Pride, or how do I get my hands on UFC 6? Right. And I realized, okay, some way, somehow, I want to take this to the next level. And I realized it's going to take a lot of work, but I know it can get done. If I get in front of the right people, explain the benefits and the reality of the sport, the economic impact, trying to legalize it in Ontario, I knew I had my work cut out for me, but it was such a passion. It was something back then that I was so in love with. And eventually we all got it done. I had so many great people along the way that kind of, there's my journey. Right. Everyone has their own journey, but along the way, you get these different like angels and different people along the way that help you to that next level. And I've had so many people at the time help me to get to that next level. I mean, no one can ever take credit for MMA in Ontario or MMA in Canada. Not even George St. Pierre can, because we all worked together for one common goal, and it all came together very, very well back in the day. So.
Yeah, before we, touch on the RIZIN stuff, like MMA in Ontario's kind of had a big boom, had the boom obviously after getting legalized, slowed down a bit. They got a new commission in there and things are starting to pick up. And then obviously COVID's put everything, not just in Ontario, but in Canada, this regional scene in Canada as a whole. But what have you thought right now of like this second wave that's been coming up? If you're even keeping up with the scene right now, Joe?
I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm not totally keeping up with the scene in Ontario, namely because and it's the better part of 2 decades, but I've had a fair amount of falling out with the Ontario Athletic Commission. I've always maintained, even before the new party came in, I should choose my words carefully. How's that? I'm not a fan. How's that? I'm just not a fan of how they do anything in Ontario. I don't know what's happening too much right now because I do have friends that work there. Or at least colleagues or acquaintances. But I know that the people that are in charge, in my honest and sincere opinion, no one else's opinion, they could care less about MMA. I mean, they don't care. It's not like, the commission in Jersey or in Vegas or wherever, like that actually cares about, it's an actual industry, right? In Ontario, it's just it's pathetic. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is absolutely pathetic. In my opinion, we should be, Ontario alone, and forget about the fantastic parties in Alberta and BC and right across the country, but Ontario alone should have spit out so many world champions like George St. Pierre, but many, many, many champions that you're handcuffed. Imagine being involved in minor hockey, right? But you can't play minor hockey. You have to go to Quebec or Winnipeg or New York or Buffalo to play hockey. You can practice hockey, but you can't play games. We have the greatest players in the world pretty much in hockey because they're allowed to develop under an amateur system. In Ontario, you can never do that. You still really can. So I think it's a pathetic commission. It's a pathetic system in Ontario. And it lost dozens upon dozens of people, including myself, because it's just sick of the bureaucratic silliness, right? So again, I apologize. I don't know what's happening. I believe there are events happening. I get the odd sort of email here and there that comes up, or I see it on social media. I don't get invited. That's one of the reasons I don't get invited to any of these things. So I don't know what's happening, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, but it is what it is. And funny how a guy like myself, Jason, has to deal with an organization in Japan, which is like they've got their stuff down pat. Like it's incredible how they operate down there. So it's just a different comparison altogether.
I will say, as I keep up with it, the commission's done a total 180. They're very much for the sport and wanting to get things going. But I know obviously the Ken Hayashi days, he just regulated it for the fact of the province pretty much said it creates jobs. So, okay, we'll pass the sport, but there has been a positive change. So you should be happy to hear that at least, Joe.
Kind of happy. Yeah. I mean, I think the commissioner, I don't know if it's the same guy as who replaced Hayashi, but the last email I had with him, I basically said to him, you should get up into stand-up comedy because you're a comedian. They basically said that there's no place for me. I don't have the experience, the skills, or any sort of anything to work with their commission. And I'm like, oh, really? Considering that other commissions that you look up to are the ones contacting me to be a consultant, but in my own province, I'm not even allowed to look at the wrapping of gloves. Yet, if you look to here, I'll even show you this. Right there, okay? Those three things there are my certificates. John McCarthy, and a Fight Promoter University. I'm a certified ref. I'm a certified judge, but Ontario thinks I can't do it. So that it's a bunch of nepotism and all that stuff. So I'll maintain that they're full of it, and I'm not going to change that because I've got other irons in the fire. They are of no concern to me whatsoever. So.
Yeah, for sure. But let's stick on track.
Wait, Jason, sorry. Look at those UFC things, okay? I still keep them up. Those are every single UFC event I've ever covered, and there's more, okay? But Ontario says I don't have the experience, and I should start at a junior, almost like a janitor position. Meanwhile, I've had people within the commission call me and say you need to apply to become the athletic commissioner. So yeah, it's comedic at its best, my friend.
I like Showdown Joe getting fired up about this. It shows your passion still for the sport.
Anyway, so
but it shows your passion for the sport, though, and I love that. Yeah. So let's show that your passion continued, because this past week you called RIZIN 26 the annual New Year's Eve tradition in Japan, which I think is just, I'm so happy it made its way through. There was kind of that rough patch there in the summer. We didn't know if things were going to go on, but Japan has been able to put on events, not only put on events, but have fans. But Joe, this was different for you. You normally are there in Saitama, Japan, at the Saitama Super Arena. You couldn't be there this year, but what was it like, first of all? Because finding out there'd be a live English feed was a huge bonus for a lot of people, especially for the price point that Live Now was charging. But what was it like for you to call this event from your own home?
A different experience. I mean, that's for sure. Like, I mean, if you are an MMA fan, and I don't mean, Jason Hagelman himself, everybody, if you're an MMA fan, you need to put it on your bucket list, and on your short bucket list to get over to an event in Japan, whether it's the New Year's Eve extravaganza or just any RIZIN event whatsoever. Heck, go see a Shooto event if you have to. I mean, deep, whatever it is. I mean, going to a RIZIN event, being there live is nothing like you have ever seen before. You might see it on your big screen or on your computer, your iPad, whatever, your smartphone, whatever. It's just not the same. When you're there live, it is, I mean, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, right? Like it is It's magical. Now, COVID hits, right? And it kind of halts a lot of things. There was a lot of things that happened at last year's New Year's Eve show that kind of put Frank and I on the shelf. Frank's got his gigs going on with all the acting and the stunt work. I've got my, financial business, my mortgage business, which, they both quote unquote pay the mortgage. Right. So no pun intended, but I guess it was pun intended. So we're okay financially, but deep down inside, you just love going to Japan. You just love being part of an amazing promotion, an amazing organization that may not work the same way we work in North America, but there's honor, right? There's honor there. They believe in certain things, and comparing it sometimes to North American MMA is a bit different because, North American MMA has got a different structure. In Japan, they love the show. They love the show. They love, some of the stuff that, the fight this, Mr. X, who was Mr. X? We're all trying to find out who Mr. X was, right? Like, that's Japan MMA at its finest. And Mr. X ends up losing, right, to a YouTuber, another story altogether, which kind of they drove everybody nuts. We're like, what just happened here, right? But that's just the show. It's so beautiful. And, you hear Lenny Hart's voice and just the boom, the pageantry. It's crazy. But to answer your question, working from home, it was like, man, I'm watching all this and I know. Did you see Horiguchi when he was doing this?
Yeah, I watched the whole
show. At the very
show.
Beginning, right? As they introduced all the fighters, they made their way down the ramp, and then they announced they cut to the ring. The black curtain drops. There's your main event fighters, Kaya Sakura and Horiguchi, and they're doing this, and everything is cool. Then Horiguchi knows what's coming, and he does this. He plugs his ears because, Jason, that boom that you hear in the arena takes your chest cavity and it just expands it. It's so loud and so powerful. Bang, let's go. Here we go. We're ready to go here, right? Calling it from home at that moment there. So what I tell Frank, I told Heath Herring this a long time ago, when we're doing anything that we're not in the arena, crank the volume in your ears. Just crank it up. Don't destroy your eardrum, but crank it up so you can actually feel as much as you can what it's like to be in the arena. So I did that throughout the broadcast here because I was in this exact position here calling the broadcast, right? In my office at home. It wasn't the same. It was obviously more challenging because I'm pulling an all-nighter, right? So I had to be on camera, ready to do the audio and the video at 10:30 p.m. And we worked around the clock till 8:30 p.m. I sat there and I'm like, well, there's a sunlight coming up and there's more sunlight and oh my God, it's daytime and I still have the main event to call, right? There's so much. I was worried my son and my wife were going to walk in the room wondering what's happening. You still working, right? So it was a different experience, but just to be associated and affiliated with a promotion like that. And I'm still an MMA fan at its core. Like I feel lucky. Like I'm lucky. No matter how long I've been doing this, I just feel so lucky and blessed to be a part of something like that because those New Year's Eve events, they kind of make you immortal. They're there forever. They're at any MMA event I call, you're there forever, especially a big one like this. So a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was a great event. You talk about the moment. Like I remember plugging on the event, like it's going to be a long one. But once I heard Lenny Hart announce Manila Man, I was like, I'm ready for like 4 to 5 plus hours of staying up, watching this event because it is kind of like, Japanese MMA has had its bit of a downfall since the end of Pride, but it's still that string that connects us all to those glory days of Pride. When that event happens every New Year's Eve, it gets me excited. And, let's talk about the main event. Kiyoshi Horiguchi comes back from a torn ACL and demolishes Kaya Asukara to regain the RIZIN bantamweight champion and prove once again he's one of the top bantamweights in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. But what do you do now? Do you do the rubber match? You have to. But when, who, where, all that stuff, right? It's just Horiguchi is something special. The Asakura brothers are something special. That whole there's a bunch of them when you start mixing and matching things, right? But Horiguchi is just something else. What kind of surprised me was his admission in the Confession series. If those who have never seen the RIZIN Confession series, I mean, the production value is just out of the world. It's amazing. But he specifically said in the first fight, he had to end it within 2 rounds. And I was like, what? He had to end it in 2 rounds because my body was not going to hold up a full, 3 rounds. I said, oh my, that's not good. You're giving that away. Then you blow your ACL. So now the people are thinking, especially that Sakura's like, this guy's broken down, he's beat down, he's not going to be able to last. Maybe we should carry this. But I mean, Asakura brothers in general, you never know what they're going to do with it when they fight. Are they going to carry a fighter as long as they want, or are they going to finish him off as quickly as they can? I mean, look at Mikuru. He destroys his opponent in the 4 minutes and 20 seconds, right? So, but like you said, Horiguchi's something else. I still think Asakura and both of those brothers are unbelievable. They're unbelievable fighters. They're the Diaz brothers of Japan. So.
Yeah, I mean, they've had their ups and downs last year, but they're still big-time players in the Japanese MMA scene. I've seen Juan Archuleta call for a fight with Horiguchi. You know, he's the Bellator bantamweight champion, and he's even offering, because now RIZIN announced on that show that March 14th they're returning to the Tokyo Dome, the first Japanese MMA event in the Tokyo Dome since like Pride in 2003, and hopefully, Joe, have you heard? Are you going to be able to call that event? Is Live Now still going to be doing RIZIN stuff?
I haven't heard a thing yet. We asked, Frank and I can ask, like, Tokyo Dome? Hey, Tokyo Dome? Figure this out. But the issue that's in Japan is that they've made some changes to what you're allowed to seat in venues and stuff like that. But with COVID in general, we're seeing it in our own hometowns and provinces and states or whatever, things change. They're fluid, right? So you just never know. But we haven't been told anything yet. Would it suck if they have an event at the Tokyo Dome and Frank and I can't go? Yeah. But at the same time, if I get that phone call or that email or that WhatsApp message or that text that says, hey, we need you for the event, can you please do it from home again? Done. Like, no problem, obviously, right? I think I learned my lesson from this last one because it was hard the next day. I mean, the December 31st here was painful. I now know what you guys all go through. It's safe to say that as soon as the show's over, brush your teeth and wash your face and go right to bed. But as soon as I get up, because I only slept 3 hours afterwards, I'll pop into Advil right away because I was hurting that evening, that I ended up going back to bed at 8:30, Jason, and my son was waking me up at 10:30. You're going to miss New Year's 11, and I had this pounding headache, but I ended up taking some Advil, gone, perfectly fine. So maybe that's the trick, a little Advil the minute I wake up afterwards, so.
Yeah, my wife had to work on New Year's Eve and woke up and I'm still watching it. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you don't get it. You don't get it. You don't get it. But You have to stay up every New. She's like, but it's New Year's. I'm like, but it's New Year's there already. And this is more important to me than a New Year's at home for a weird year. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, Joe, we get to see you back, even if it's like you said, doing it from home. I think Live Now has a great system. Since Fight's no longer going to be carrying RIZIN, maybe they'll get that word out. But Live Now, the stream was great. It was great to hear you and Frank back together. And it's great because you get those English guys to cross over for a product that still needs more eyeballs on it, I feel.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised there aren't any more eyeballs on it, especially considering in the age of social media. Right, because when back in the day, social media wasn't around when Pride was around, right? Like there was no real Facebook and Instagram and whatnot and Twitter. So things have changed, but I'm with RIZIN on a bunch of different things. I may not, I shouldn't say agree. I agree with everything they do because they're just great. Business direction, right? I love what they do, but I'm the same with my own business, the businesses that I have at home here. Clean up your own backyard before you go knocking on your neighbor's door. Right? So perfect what you have now at home in Japan before you take it globally. But then they have the relationship with Bellator, right? So there's a really good situation there, right? So I look at that as an example to think, they got Live Now, which is an unbelievable platform. I mean, the way that we did things behind the scenes, like you don't see it, when you're watching on Live Now, but the platform and the way we were able to do it is magical. Right. So who says that, one day we can't do it on terrestrial TV or the Zone or whatever platform. Right. I think if they're happy with Live Now, they're going to stay there. You don't break relationships unless for business, it's going to be more money because a business is there to make money. Right. I haven't heard yay or nay about the relationship in general. The only thing I really get, Jason, is a phone call or a text saying, are you available? Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. Done. Let's go.
Well, the good news, Joe, is you have at least a couple months because that event is at least the Tokyo Dome show is until March 14th, and RIZIN hasn't announced anything. So I'm assuming they're trying to build up, obviously trying to build up the Tokyo Dome to be like this WrestleMania level card, this
Yeah,
old Pride level card,
imagine.
because you're returning back for a venue that you haven't MMA in Japan hasn't been since 2003.
Yeah, I've never been to the Tokyo Dome, so rest assured, if I get that phone call to make the choice of, do you want to come to Japan or do you want to do it from home? No, I'm coming to Japan. I've never been
Yeah.
to the Tokyo Dome, believe it or not. I've been to Saitama, and to this day, when I get to Saitama, I still look around. I still kind of look at the ceiling and look at the seats and look at the viewpoints and think, oh man, all the different fights that happen here, all the different names, and it just even the fights that I call the Krokop tournament when he won the tournament, and just in general. I mean, but they don't. I mean, Krokop doing what he did then doesn't compare to what he did when he competed against guys like Krokop and Minotauro, but you get so much nostalgia when you get there, and then I'm there to help create new memories. Right, it's my voice. Like even when Tension took on Mayweather, right? Like that was just that's a I'll always tell people. They always ask me what's the biggest fight that you call. I'm like, well, Mayweather. Right? Maybe you didn't see it, maybe you didn't see it, but I called a Mayweather fight. That's a feather in my cap. It's always going to be there. And I've called some big fights, but just in Saitama, it's insane. It's literally, I'm telling you guys, bucket list, put it on your bucket list. Trust me.
Well, Joe, it's on my bucket list. I guess last question for you. What's the coolest thing about the Saitama Super Arena that many of us haven't actually got to experience other than through our TVs and our laptops?
Coolest thing about Saitama. Man, I don't know. There's so many. For me, it feels like it's the middle of nowhere because of where we stay in the hotel, having to drive all the way to Saitama, and then by the time we get there, but it's hard to say because it's just the Japanese in general are just wonderful human beings. They treat you so good. I have a running joke with my pals. I'm like, they make us Canadians and Australians look like ISIS. Like the Japanese are so amazing, and people have their theories about every single country and stuff like that. I assure you that when I get there, I mean, I'm treated like gold. Like I am treated like royalty. And sometimes you're trying to get into an elevator or trying to do anything at Saitama when you're trying to go up and down an aisle. If I got to go grab some food or I got to go to the bathroom, it's like they just let you in. It's like, no, you're a lady. Go. Like they're just so polite. They're so kind. So the fans, being there, it feels different. Saitama just feels different. The arena feels different than what we're used to, whether it's the the Scotiabank Arena or the Rogers Center or the Rogers Arena or wherever. It just feels different. The layout and the seating and just the design, it's completely different. That you feel safe. You definitely feel safe. You feel like you're amongst 30,000 of your family members because you're never in danger. You don't feel like, there's no fights that break out. There's no F-bombing. There's none of that stuff. It's just you're at, picture a family reunion with nobody getting smashed out of their face, no scraps, no fighting. Everyone's there for a specific reason to get along. They're all polite. Everything is great. And you get to watch some of the most amazing fights in history. So.
Well, Joe, you once again make me really want to go check out the Saitama Super or just Japanese MMA or anything in Japan for the a New Year's event or anything after that. But now I'll let you go, Joe. Plug your social media out there because you got a couple businesses as well that you're running successfully, and hopefully we get to hear you as the PA guy for York FC and the Canadian Soccer League as well.
Yeah, they changed it. York 9 has now become York United. So I'm the stadium voice for York United because I'm also a soccer coach. I coach my son's team. It's a rep program. I'm on the executive board of the Stouffville Soccer Association. So I'm helping build that, rebrand and rebuild that association, which is full of great human beings as well. So soccer is huge to me, and I'm lucky to be involved with a professional soccer team. For those who don't know what York United is, so the Toronto FC, Vancouver, and Montreal, they played an American domestic league. The MLS is an American domestic league. We now have our own Canadian Premier League, and York United is one of the teams. It's the Toronto team in the area. So I'm the stadium voice for them. But my one, and I got that because of a relationship I had at Sportsnet. which also was a party who needed a mortgage. And that's my other business is I'm a mortgage agent, mortgage broker, and that's a business of mine that's really, really expanding right now. So that's my number one focus. So in terms of social media, you might see some MMA stuff. You will see a fair amount of mortgage stuff, or just little tips and tricks. And of course, some zaniness with me on social media, just being who I am. I still like to show a bit of my personality. So it's Joe A. Ferraro on Twitter, Joe A. Ferraro on Instagram, and on Facebook. I don't even know well, you can go to Joe Ferraro Mortgages for my business page, but on a personal side, it's Joe Ferraro with a bunch of numbers. Just search Joe Ferraro, look for the shiny bald head, and yeah, that's me. So.
All right, Joe. Well, Joe, it was a real blast talking with you about the old days of the old show on Sportsnet and what your work now with RIZIN and just the event as a whole. And hopefully we get to hear you call the event with, once again, Frank Trigg, because you guys are one of my favorite duos every year. Every time you guys get together, one of my favorite groups to get together. Luckily, you can hopefully get to Tokyo to do the Tokyo Dome show. Hopefully COVID goes away, but best of luck. And I hope to talk to you again, Joe, because this was a lot of fun.
Anytime. You let me know. I think you know the drill. Give me some time, make sure, and I'll make myself available, right? Even though it's I'm getting slammed with business. For you just let me know, give me some time, and I'll make sure we get that half an hour in there for you.
All right, that's Showdown Joe Ferrara. He is the English voice for RIZIN Fighting Federation on Live Now, and hopefully we will get to hear Joe do some more work for RIZIN in 2021. Joe, thanks for your time.